Hello, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while, and I feel like I say that all the time. I actually had to go and look at the format of my other reviews because I couldn't remember since it's been so long. But anyway, I'm reviewing The Wild Robot, as you can tell from the title, so without further ado, let's get it. Why did I pick up this book? Well, the answer for this is simple, really. The movie is great, and it makes me cry. I want to cry like a little baby. I've also been in a reading slump again recently, so when I heard there was a book for this, it seemed like a nice quick read. Here's the synopsis off of Goodreads for those who don't know anything about the story. When the robot Ross opens her eyes for the first time, she discovers that she is all alone on a remote, wild island. She has no idea how she got there or what her purpose is, but she knows she needs to survive. After battling a violent storm and escaping a vicious bear attack, she realizes that her only hope for survival is to adapt to her surroundings and learn from the island's unwelcoming animal inhabitants. As Ross slowly befriends the animals, the island starts to feel like home, until one day, robots, the robot's mysterious path comes to haunt her. What first struck me about the book is that the writing is very simple, like mostly short, simple sentences. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing, but also not what I was expecting, and personally not my favorite writing style, but I could definitely see myself enjoying it more if I was actually in the intended age range. The chapters are nice and short and easy to breeze through. I noticed that it kind of reads like a nature documentary at certain points with fun facts like, did you know this bird is known for making this sort of sound? Or like, look at this stick insect camouflaging? Or did you know animal droppings can be used as fertilizer and such? Again, I think it's a cute inclusion for the kiddos. The illustrations are also fun, especially seeing the design of the robot here compared to the movie version. There's a lot more named characters in the book, but unfortunately, I can't say many of them were super memorable. Ross and Brightbill's characters aren't anything particularly new for the genre, but I still really like their bond. The book kind of trots along with short vignettes of life on the island for like 80% of it, and then the ending goes absolutely wild. I flew through those last chapters, let me tell you. Overall, I'd rate this book 3.5 stars and a 7 out of 10. I know I can't judge it the same way as I would other novels, so I hope this is fair. In short, if you want to experience the story, I'd suggest you watch the movie. But if you have kids or are a kid and looking for a cute read, then give this book a go. Now on to the spoiler review and book to movie comparison. I was going to just do a book summary as usual, but then I found it easier to do my smaller comparisons along the way. I'm just going to say straight up, basically all the changes the movie made were for the better in my opinion, which is not common for book to movie adaptations, but I think the movie worked really well for the story this was trying to tell. Oh, and if you're new to my channel, I like to put tangentially related images on my slides as I do my summary. Some of them are really niche or just like inside jokes that probably only my family or close friends would get, so don't get hung up if you don't understand. But it could be fun to try to figure it out. Okay, as the synopsis suggests, this book opens with a storm that sinks the cargo ships. Crates holding robots scatter at sea, with many sinking or smashing against the rocks. Sort of like Finding Nemo, only one bot survives and stays intact. This bot is called Rosm Unit 7134, or ROS for short. As expected, many of the island animals on the island are terrified of this big metal thing that crash landed on their island and run away. Roz is left to navigate the island on her own, and the next few chapters are basically just that. She's programmed to be a learning robot, so she puts those abilities to use as she tries to adapt to the unfamiliar environment. In chapter 10, there's a little interjection from the narrator saying that Roz doesn't know of her origins, and as far as she knows, she's at home on the island. This is interesting to me because in the movie, Roz immediately knows that she's not where she's supposed to be, and one of her first actions is to try to send a signal to get home. Of course, this gets disrupted by the animals, but I think it was an interesting change that gave Roz a bit more agency and nuance. Okay, in the book, Roz goes on to brawl with bears, camouflage herself, observe the animals, and then eventually learn how to speak animal. Apparently, the animals have this thing known as the Dawn Truce, where they agreed to not hunt each other for a time. And I hate how I'm questioning the logic of a talking animal book, but do the animals have a common dialect? Or can they just all understand each other through the noises they make? Who knows? Anyway, the animals meet to discuss the presence of this mysterious new island resident. Roz attempts to approach, but unsurprisingly, no one trusts her yet. They all see her as a monster who wants to eat them and thus refuse to help. It's not until chapter 24 of the book that the major incident happens where Roz crashes through a tree and accidentally kills a goose and all her eggs except for one. Roz picks up the egg and takes it with her. You know, something I wish was explored more in this story, both in the book and movie, is the fact that both Roz and the Gosling, Brightbill as he'll be called, are both sole survivors. By a stroke of luck, they both survived where others didn't, but this is never really touched on in depth in either one. Maybe it's a little heavy for a kid's story, I don't know, to talk about survivor's guilt and all that. Anyway, the egg hatches and Roz, unsurprisingly, has no idea what to do. Roz meets a goose named Loudwing and tries to pass the gosling off to her, but Loudwing refuses and tells Roz that she has to raise the gosling herself. In the book, Loudwing is the one to suggest the name Brightbill for the gosling, whereas in the movie, Roz named him herself, because Loudwing isn't a character in the movie, lol. But it's not that important of a change, and I think it's better anyway that Roz names Brightbill. Okay. In the book, Roz recruits the beavers to help make a house for her and her new son. Here's another difference from the movie because in the movie, she observes the beaver's house design and then builds her own house herself. Again, not really a major change, but I personally think the movie version makes more sense that she still needs to do things on her own since she doesn't really have the other animals' trust yet. Although I will say the book does justify this kinda by having Roz give the animals something in exchange for their help. For example, she supplies the beavers with wood for their dam, the deer help with her garden in exchange for a share of the harvest, and so on. Eventually, the other animals seem to grow more comfortable and offer Roz advice on how to be a mother and care for Brightbill. Brightbill learns to swim with the help of the other geese. He almost gets bitten or eaten by a pike, but he's saved by Loudwing. Brightbill continues to grow and make friends. He also learns to fly through practice. Movie comparison again. I like how more time was spent on teaching Brightbill how to do these things. Obviously, Roz wouldn't know how to teach him, so she needs help from others. Brightbill's quick learning in the book may be chalked up to just instincts kicking in, but the important thing about him is that he's talked about as a runt and needs more help to accomplish things that other goslings can do easily. In the movie, I like the detail that he swims by paddling with his wings and not just his feet. I also like that in the movie, Roz sees teaching Brightbill to fly and swim as objectives that she must complete before she tries to leave again. The book goes on with more little snippets of Roz and Brightbill's lives together. And then there's a chapter where Brightbill's just in a bad mood because of the weather for some reason, and then this is the moment where he starts lashing out at Roz for not being his real mother, but then they talk and then things are a-okay. This major unexpected conflict was again handled better in the movie because it felt more natural and less sudden, and like you knew it was building up to it, and when it finally broke, it just made sense. It wasn't just like, oh, it's a bad day. Okay, the next main event is Red Bill running off to the robot graveyard, aka the crash site where Roz comes with him. They talk about death and stuff and then realize Roz has a button on the back of her head. They find that the button shuts her down, but she still retains her memories when she comes back on. The next event it jumps to is Roz getting into a fight with bears who think she shouldn't be on their island. One of the bears gets yeeted off a cliff, but Roz saves him. In the process, she loses her foot, but the beavers who helped her with her house help her make a new one out of wood. Now it's time for the goose migration. The scene in the movie is so beautiful, especially with the music. It's so good. Winter on the island is brutal, and Roz goes around saving the other animals and letting them take shelter in her home. She starts building more shelters to fit them all, but then the animals who haven't seen fire before build the fire inside too high and burn down the original home, so then Roz has to go make a new one that's even bigger. And then, okay, so Roz makes them have a dawn truce where they agree not to eat each other while in her lodge. But it's kind of awkwardly funny because they do still need to eat. So in the book, it mentions sometimes that someone would leave and not return. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's fair. See, something both the book and movie make me question is how exactly the animals are expected to get along long term if they, need to eat each other to survive, circle of life kind of thing. But anyway, spring comes, the ice melts, life returns to normal. Brightbill comes back and tells Roz all about his adventures. He and the geese stopped in at a farm where there were robots like Roz who didn't seem to mind that they were there, but then a human came and straight up shoots the goose leader, Longneck, so Brightbill has to lead the flock in his stead. The book then takes a few short chapters where Roz throws the animals a party, and then we're on the final act where the Rico or RECO bots come to take Roz back, and things go positively bonkers, yeah? The animals work together to try to protect Roz, breaking down all of these Rico bots except for Rico 1, who tracks and fights with Roz. In the scuffle for the Rico's rifle, it explodes and Roz full on loses both arms and legs. Roz is temporarily deactivated, but Brightbill comes in and turns it back on with a handy dandy button at the back of her head. While Rico 1 is distracted gathering robot parts or something, the geese use one of the Rico's rifles to shoot and kill Rico 1. Oh my goodness. It's kind of neat because, of course, the geese would be the animals to know the basics of a rifle because they were the ones who had encountered it during migration, so it comes back around. So anyway, Roz is now currently completely dismembered. She knows more Ricos will be coming for her, so she makes the decision to leave the island. The animals help her move and pack up the ship with all the robot parts from the graveyard, and then she leaves just like in the movie, and it's implied that they meet again. But oh golly, I do love the ending of the movie when she says her classic, "Hello, I am Roz from Unit 7134," in the cheerful robotic voice, but then it shifts to her warmer, more human tone when she says, "But you can call me Roz," to Brightbill. So good! I'm definitely not crying at this animated kids movie. Okay. When I look at all the changes the movie made to the book, basically all of them actually work better in my opinion. I mentioned a lot of the specifics already, so I just talk more on a few main points. For one, I think the movie does a better job of giving the other characters time to shine. I appreciate the inclusion of Fink more in the movie because he gives someone for Roz to talk to and bounce off of, especially when everything is still new and foreign. The scenes with Pinktail and her kids, the possums, were hilarious, and I think her inclusion helps explore the theme of motherhood more in the story. Thunderbolt being the one to teach Brightbill to fly was epic. And finally, I think Vontra makes a cool antagonist in the end, and I like her having voice lands because it was a nice addition instead of just being another faceless silent threat that's hunting her. The most memorable characters in the book are probably just Chit Chat the squirrel because the way she talks consists of a ton of strung together sentences that make for a unique voice. And I guess maybe the bears are memorable, but more of as a unit than individual characters. I also think the movie is paced better and divides the sections more evenly. The first chunk is dedicated to raising Brightbill and preparing him for the migration. The second part is split between Brightbill and his flock during the migration and Roz caring for the animals in the winter. And then the final act is a fight against the retrieval bots. The book feels a little aimless at times, especially in the beginning, and it's kind of hard to tell where it's going a lot of the time. To be fair, I feel like this is where the difference between written versus visual media really comes to play. It's a lot easier to show a montage of Brightbill learning how to fly than repeatedly having to describe it in the book. It could work, but it just wasn't as effective in the book. The book also, given that it's written for a younger audience, also tends to state things straight up instead of implying it. For example, I think the single shot of Roz holding the broken wing of Brightbill's dead parent is way more impactful and striking than the way it was described in the book. And finally, I think the way the movie handles shifts in tone was a lot smoother than in the book, because in the book it was a little jarring to go from quirky animal antics to, oh no, there's a bunch of dead corpses when the snow melts. And but in the movie, you have the music and visual atmosphere to better give the heavier moments more time to breathe and distinguish it from the lighter moments. So this book is technically a series, but I don't really feel the need to read the rest of it. There's potential for them to make a sequel movie, and maybe I'll read the books then, but honestly, I found the ending to be the perfect the way it is. Well, that's it for now. If you've read the book or watched the movie, please let me know your thoughts below. If you've been reading descriptions of my past videos, you'll notice I've been teasing reviews for Little Women and Red Queen for a while now, but it's been taking me a bit to finish those books. Well, I hope to by the end of the summer, especially the Red Queen series. Boy, do I have thoughts on that! Anyway, stay tuned and thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!